All right, I think it's about time to start. So welcome everyone to Transition into Custom Metadata Type session, featuring myself. My name is Vladimir. I'm a product manager at Salesforce, and Carolyn.
Hi, I'm Carolyn. I'm a lead dev at Salesforce.
And today we're gonna showcase you how to transition from custom settings into custom metadata types. But before we start, a small reminder about forward-looking statement. Please do not make any purchasing decisions based on features that are not yet available, um, though most of the stuff we'll be talking today is available. And before we start, I just want to give a brief introduction into custom metadata types for those of you who might haven't used it yet. And is there any of you who never heard about custom metadata types? Or never use them? OK, cool. So there are a few people who find this helpful. So often I ask the audience about what type of objects we have in Salesforce. And the most common answers that I've been getting through the years, and it's slightly changing now, was custom and standard. But today I want us to think a little bit differently about this problem. So I want you to think about the object from a perspective of your business users and your administrators. And in this sense, we have data objects, or those objects that store data that you use for your business, like account, and objects that you use for configurations that being stored by created by your admins and developers that powers up your apps, that power ups your packages maybe, and some other stuff inside your org. And if we look deeper into that, we can say that there are standard data objects like accounts, contacts, opportunities, leads, and so on. And there are custom data objects that you might create for something that Salesforce does not provide outside of the box. Let's say an object for invoices. You can create a custom object to store invoices in your org. And then there are metadata types. We don't call them standard metadata types. But for instance, validation rule is just a rule that set up how your org operates. It has nothing to do with your business. It's just there to help. Account settings and all those kind of things would fall into that category. And then we have custom metadata types. Things like stock point rules, maybe tax rates, zip codes, all kind of things that powers up your app, powers up your processes within your org. And for that, you can create custom metadata types. And you might be asking yourself a question, why do I need custom metadata types when I already have custom settings or custom objects? Some of you might be doing that for years, using custom settings, custom object to store all those kind of things. But custom metadata types specifically designed to store configurational data. And what I mean by that, if you look at the list of features they provide you, you will probably understand. First and foremost is that you can package records of custom metadata types. So when you deploy something between your sandbox and production, you can package the records of custom metadata types and deploy them. Unlike custom object and custom settings, you rely on Apex scripts or admins populating them after the deployment. With custom metadata type, this is not a problem. On top of that, they're cached, meaning that they do not count against your SOCL limits. So you can query custom metadata type records without worrying about running into governor limits and without worrying that you will no longer be able to perform those queries. And there are a lot of additional features around security. You can make them protected, same as custom settings, but you can also apply security on an individual record level, as well as mark particular fields of being editable by subscriber or by developers. And now you can reference them in a lot of declarative tools like Process Builder, default values, formula fields, and so on. But with that, we want to talk about how we can transition you from custom settings or custom object into the beautiful world of custom metadata types.
All right. So I'm going to take over walking through a demo that we've written where we have an application using custom settings, and we're going to transform it into an application using custom metadata types to do the exact same thing. This is a really simple little app. It does one thing pretty darn well. When you insert a lead, a trigger will run a SOQL query that retrieves values from a custom setting to say, based on the country and the industry of the lead, here's what the record type should be. And then it sets that record type. That's all this application is going to do. Right now it's using custom settings. We're going to transform it into using custom metadata types. So we're going to start this recorded demo. Here I am in Visual Studio Code. I've already created a Scratch organization where I'm going to run this. But the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to push all of my code to my Scratch org so that I can interact with it. And I'll share the links to all of this source code too. But this code contains classes, it contains layouts, it contains the custom setting definition itself, it contains some profiles, and it has a trigger on the lead so that it can perform this operation when we insert leads. I want to take a quick look at the custom setting service class. Here's the crucial SOQL query that's querying for custom settings. We will retrieve a record type name from the custom setting that matches country and industry that the user enters. That is the crucial point. So all of my source code has been pushed to my Scratch org. Now I want to take a look and see, what have I got in the org? I want to look at that custom setting. It's the linchpin driving this whole application. So here I am in setup. Let's open up custom settings in the sidebar. If you would, recorded demo.
I can pretend that I'm typing.
Here I have a list of all of the custom settings that were added to the org when I did my push from Visual Studio Code. I've got the custom fields that I added to it for country, industry, and record type name. But when I click Manage to view all of the custom setting records, there are none. I did that push and I got no records. What good did that do me? Well, it didn't get any records for the same reason Vlad was talking about. The records of custom settings are data, not metadata. So I have to create them in the org, which is a pain. A lot of packages solve this with a post install script, so that's what I've got in this application. Here we're looking at the post install script, and it's got a lot of logic just to create some records that should have been metadata anyway. It's got this huge map of country code to region. This is a pain to have in code. It's hard to update later. These records are only getting created one time when I install this package. It's a huge pain. But all right, I want to demo my app, so I'll run my post install script. When I do this from Visual Studio Code, since I'm just pushing source, I'm not actually installing a package, I'm just going to execute this Apex from the terminal. So I'm running sfdx force apex execute, and it's going to take in the name of a file that has the code it's going to run. So it's going to run the code that I have here in my editor, which is just creating an instance of my post install script and invoking the methods on it. So it's going to do the same thing that it would if I packaged up this code and deployed it to an organization. All right, my post install script executed. So now I should be able to go back to my organization and refresh my page of custom settings and see, all right, now I have my records. The Apex created the records. If you're setting up something like a CI/CD system to deploy the package and test that it's working, this is going to end up being an extra step in that process. It's a pain. But all right, I've got my records. Let's see it in action. I'm going to create a lead. All right, new lead. I'll make this a lead for myself. So I'll give it my own last name. And I work at Salesforce. This is the most riveting part, isn't it? All right, now the crucial two fields. I'll pick the government industry. And I'll pick Andorra as the country because that's the custom setting record we looked at a second ago. And I'm expecting that trigger to automatically set the record type. That's all this app is doing. It's using a trigger to automatically set record type based on some values in a custom setting. And the record type was successfully set. So at least we know the application is working with custom settings. Now let's transform it to using custom metadata types instead. All right, maybe I have the next video.
Here we go.
All right. I think it is the next
Nope.
slide. No,
It's not next.
the next slide.
Sorry.
Thank you. All right, I haven't changed anything yet. The first thing I'm going to do is look at my custom setting definition. Check out the name of it, check out the fields on it. Now I'm going to run a command in sfdx, and here's our forward-looking stuff. This is something that hasn't been released yet. We're adding a new command to sfdx just for this. It's going to be force cmdt generate. I know, right? The cameras came out. I like that part. We're passing in two properties. The first is the name of a custom setting that already exists in the default organization. And the second property we're inputting is the name that I want an equivalent custom metadata type to have. So I'm making my equivalent custom metadata type record type mapping CMT. Two things are going to happen when this command runs. The first is that it's going to do a describe call to get the name of the custom setting and the name of all the fields, and then it creates files in my local file system to represent the same custom metadata type with the same fields. And once it's done that, it does a SQL query to get all of the data from that custom setting and creates custom metadata records with all the exact same values in all the exact same fields, saving me a lot of time of sitting there recreating all of my data. So now I've got all of that in my local file system. I can just replace all of the references in my Apex classes to custom settings with references to my custom metadata type. Because the SQL syntax for custom settings and custom metadata types is exactly the same, I'm just doing a replace all here in Visual Studio Code. I'm not going to replace it in the post-install script because we're not even going to need the post-install script anymore now that we've got our custom metadata type records. Let's take a quick look at what that class ended up looking like after we did the find and replace. Here's that same SQL query, but now instead of querying a custom setting, it's querying a custom metadata type instead. It's getting the same field based on the same two inputs. Now that I've got all of that source, I'm ready to push it to my organization and see it in action. So we're going to do a force source push. And it's going to push not just the custom metadata type definition, but also the custom metadata records. So now when I'm writing a CI/CD process to test this, I'm going to be able to have all of my metadata in that test organization in one operation without having to write extra setup scripts afterward to make it all work. All right, I've pushed it all to my org. Now let's open this default org and take a look at it. Come on, open. I know that this is a place where I had a Chrome hiccup in my demo. All right, let's open the default org and take a look at that custom metadata type. I'll find it in the sidebar. Custom metadata. Here's the custom metadata type we just pushed. It'll have the name we defined and all of the fields that got copied over from the custom setting. And now, without having to run any post-install script, it's going to have all the records there. We have another Andorra record equivalent to our Andorra custom setting record. So now that we've got all that placed, let's prove that it's actually working. So I'll create another lead. There we go. This could be a lead for Vlad. So we'll put in your last name. And you work at Salesforce. Vlad works in nonprofit today.
Doing just for fun?
What country should we say Vlad is from?
Let me guess.
Oh, we got it. So I'm expecting the record type to be automatically set to nonprofit in EMEA. And it has been set by the same trigger. So in, I think it's under 8 minutes, we transformed an application using custom settings into one using custom metadata types, using force CMDT generate. And I just have one more thing I want to touch on before I hand it back to you, Vlad, is how do we test it once we've got that conversion in place? Up to very recently, testing custom metadata types in Apex was very challenging because you couldn't edit custom metadata types in Apex tests. You couldn't insert, you couldn't update. And that's still true for the same reason that you can't update an Apex class in a test. You would be editing the metadata that you're testing. That creates weird race conditions. We can't do it. But we do have an alternative now. This is a mock custom metadata service. So as long as I construct all of my code so that all of my queries for custom metadata types are coming from one service, I can create a mock service that is the equivalent of that, so that in my tests, this mock service will return custom metadata records that I instantiate right there in the test. So the crucial points that I want to point out here is that this implements stub provider. That's the interface that you'll need to implement for a test that does this. And then when a method gets called that I need to return a custom metadata type, instead of doing a SQL query, it's going to instantiate a new custom metadata record in memory and just return it. And that's going to take the place of doing SQL queries for custom metadata types in my Apex tests. And we're going to have links to the source code repos with the before and the after of everything we did here.
Perfect. That was really cool demo of how you can convert something that's been using previously custom settings or custom object into a custom metadata types. And if you want to learn more, we have a set of amazing resources available for you. Some of you maybe already noticed that we released a new Trailhead modules for custom metadata types. Previously, it was only covering aspects for developers. Now we have two different modules, one called Custom Metadata Type Basics, which covers declarative aspects of custom metadata type, of how you define it, of how you reference across multiple different features like process builder and validation rules. And then we have our old cool programmatic development with custom metadata types that have been also updated and hopefully became a little bit better. So good news, if you already earn a badge on this, you can earn 2 additional badges just on custom metadata types. I invite everyone to join Trailblazer group. It's a pretty nice community there of people like you who've been using custom metadata types or maybe just start using custom metadata types. And Tim and myself also check in that group quite often. So if you're stuck with something or you have a question, there's a chance that one of us would help you as well.
Or you can just mention Vlad. That works
You can
too.
just mention Vlad, yes. As Carolyn mentioned, we would provide the links to the apps that we had before and after this demo. And with that, we are open for Q&A. And I think because it's a theater, we're going to move to the side. So we let other people take the stage. And we'll be here for a while answering your questions. But thank you very much for coming, and I hope you enjoy the session. Don't forget to go to the app and give us a 5-star if you like it. And if you don't like it, don't go to the app.
Thank you.